Hey traders, TG Watkins here. It is July 21st, Thursday, when I am recording this. And yeah, if you guys come over here to profitpilot.com, I just wanted to kind of show you a couple things. I put out these twice a week video newsletters, and we were talking about originally CPI is like, well, hey, market didn't actually fall apart on the CPI numbers like it did on the last one, so that might be something we need to look into. And then once we had that done, we had the CPI and the PPI, same thing. They both dropped, but then recovered. And this one in particular, I was talking about how we might be seeing the market actually start moving up in a more earnest way. Despite all the news and the headlines and the bearishness and all that kind of stuff, we could start seeing things actually change a little bit out there. So go ahead and check out that video when you have a chance. As far as that, diving into the S&P, yep, we've been seeing price move, and we've had a couple fake outs, little to shake out weak hands along the way, and mostly what that is we saw that Apple news earlier in the week saying that they're going to reduce their employees and just downsize a little bit for the coming economic slowdown. And so where we saw that was basically right here. A nice little dip and then recover. So I was kind of expecting that based on what I was seeing on the 15-minute time frame. So we got the dip and then it recovered. The Moxie indicator was above zero, so dip right there was a trampoline move, and it'd been just trying to hammer out a bottom in through here. Now we do have price up over the daily 50. I'm going to show you guys some examples coming up of kind of a little bit of a roadmap of how I think that this might end up going, mostly because the market, individual names, as they've been going from basically point A to, say point B, wherever that is, they've been doing a lot of this, and it's been a lot of work and a lot of chop, a lot of channel trading, stuff like that. And I would not be surprised to see the S&P do the same thing. It's like, if you're seeing individual names do it, then most likely S&P is going to go kind of the same way. And so we have now made it over the daily 50. We're starting to kind of pull away from support, so I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of see a pullback into this area. I've seen this in the past, 2000, 2008, where we've seen it move up and then back down, and it just, we might end up getting all the way up here someplace, but it's going to take its time and it's going to be bumpy. And if you look at individual names, they kind of give you a decent roadmap of kind of what to expect. So I'll show you some examples of that. Here on the hourly chart, you can see we're also starting to pull away from the hourly 50. We did that back and through here, but we also had resistance up here. We don't exactly have resistance here other than, price is kind of coming into this previous consolidation area, and we've mostly filled the gaps that we had. So those are the things that are working out there. And I would be thinking that soon there might be a pullback. It might line up with the FOMC and the interest rate raise, basically just an excuse to push the market down in order to hopefully buy the dip. It seems to me that moves down at this point are going to be buy the dip territory. All right, so TME, I just wanted to sidestep and talk a little bit about this one. This, forget what a ticker this is. It's the motion of the ocean that makes it kind of look more what I wanted to talk about. And so what you can see here is with TME, price getting past the daily 50, right? And then we could see what it do, pulled back into moving averages. That's kind of more what I'm looking at for what the S&P is going to do. Like as the S&P tries to get past its daily 50, it's probably going to encounter some turbulence in through here. We've been seeing that with a lot of different stocks, and then kind of pull back. Once it holds, then it can start to move up like this. And on the hourly chart, what that might look like for the S&P also is price dipping below the hourly 50, but the Moxie indicator staying above zero, and that would be a trampoline move. So this is kind of what I'm looking at, thinking it's going to happen. Of course, we don't entirely know, but that's kind of what I'm looking for, and it might coincide with the FOMC time, interest rate raise. Just like, oh, okay, yeah, they definitely did a 75 basis points or 100 basis points, and the market's going to go down, and then hopefully it'll be buy the dip, and then we can work on resuming to the upside, something like that. Then we come over, and if we look at the NASDAQ, Same kind of, it's the same basic idea as the S&P. The Nasdaq is actually now leading the way. It's stronger. It's probably the more oversold of the situation, so there's probably more short covering going on. And it too is starting to come up into some previous price area, starting to get near the 30 ATR, and you can see here again with the gap between price and the hourly 50, very similar to what we saw here when price starts to get too far away from its moving averages, like the hourly 50. We should be expecting a pullback or a flag, and so that's where we're at right here. There have been some good moves out there, but I'm looking for a pullback, and if that pullback is into support and strength, then we should have a pretty good test that support, and then move up after that, and it'll be nice. If we look at IWM today, well, I guess until the end, well, yeah, even at that, the IWM was kind of lagging today, so it was lagging. It looks like it did decently into the close, but it too is starting to pull away and create that gap that we're talking about. And just looking for something like that where it pulls back into the moving average at some point, and then we can continue to work with that. Then if we look at SOXX, the semiconductors, yeah, they've been having a pretty good time. There was a fairly clear setup right here as price came into the hourly 50, and then they just took off. And that's been pretty good, but same thing, big gap between price and the hourly 50. It's getting a little bit overbought, and you could see here on the daily chart that it's been doing so well that it's really starting to pull away from the daily 8 EMA. So at some point, this is going to become overbought, and we should just expect a pullback. Now, I don't think that this pullback is going to be terrible. In fact, I think it's going to be great. So if we look for the pullback, I think it's going to be a buying opportunity. And then if we look at UVXY, I've kind of been mentioning this, talk about it, and seeing what's going on, saying it was kind of holding up pretty well despite what the market was doing. But I think today we're finally seeing it actually break to new lows, so that's good. The last couple days right here, it was holding up pretty well, but it was still underneath the 15-minute 50, and you could see that it came and actually tapped the hourly 50 right there. And then I wasn't sure if it was going to try and kind of close that space a little bit. But now that it's really going off like this, that's good. And then you can see here we had that trend line, if I could draw a straight line, and it is starting to break down there. So this is good for now, and we like that. Now we'll have to see what it wants to do about maybe a little bounce, then a rollover, but then maybe keep an eye on that lower third ATR. So it's good that the UVXY is going down, and for now it's good that that lower trend line is breaking. And the last couple of videos that I've made talking about that trend line, I said, hey, things will work until they don't work, and that's just how the market is. And I think that's what we're seeing. Really kind of no setup in the UVXY, which is good. All right, then Snapchat. There's some interesting news about that one. So they came out with earnings today. Apparently not good, which is funny because compared to Netflix, a lot of people are kind of scratching their head. And they said, so Netflix has bad earnings and it goes up. Well, Netflix had less bad. How about that one? That's kind of more the term that people are talking about. They're like, well, we knew it was going to not be awesome. We knew it was going to be down, but it's not as down as much as maybe we thought, and so therefore the short case on it is over, and so it goes up and shorts get squeezed. So I think that's kind of what happened. But on Snapchat, whatever those numbers were, apparently not good, and maybe were worse than expected. And what we were looking at was there was a bit of a channel trade going on right here, and you could even see from this point there was even this upper line. So you could say that that upper trend line really did work, but that lower one totally failed. I think price is something down around here. So that's pretty rough. Snapchat is definitely not having a good time at that one. So you'll see as I go through this video, I've got more charts and stocks that I'm showing that are trying to work their way up, and they look just like this. And I think it just goes to show that earnings right now can be a problem, and that is kind of the rolling of the dice about the Russian roulette. If we're going to be doing that as far as earnings go, that's why I don't like to trade earnings, because man, it looks like the stock is trying to recover, and then you get something like that and it just gets whacked. So still be careful out there, and as much as we try and trying to buy things and look for them to go up, not everything is going to go with it. There are still a lot of headwinds out there and still a lot of problems. Now in sympathy, Meta, Facebook, also moved down. Not nearly as bad. It's not blowing out the bottom end or anything else like that, but it is doing the pullback that I was talking about that I want to see with the S&P and the NASDAQ and all that stuff. So you can see here how there was a big gap on the daily chart there, and you can see a big gap here. And I'm saying with the indexes, I was like, hey, I'd really like to see these things pull back and into some support, maybe just below the hourly 50 for a trampoline move, maybe into the daily 21, something like that. And we have Meta, I think it's something around there to where it is. And so at some point, if you're interested in Meta, this should be a buy the dip opportunity, but it is moving down in sympathy of Snapchat. And if there really is a problem, then Meta will not be a great trade, and you should just be prepared for that. All right, so some other notable areas. We have Tesla, and again, kind of got to laugh a little bit at the earnings situations. They had some headwinds too, and Elon, I guess, was trying to downplay a little bit and make it so that when they report numbers, it was still seeming okay. So whatever, that worked out. And I was kind of covering this earlier in the week with our subscribers over here, Moxie and Simpler Trading, and talking about how, well, there's a bit of a wedge here. You can see that, and it broke out. So good. Finally starting to see some stuff like this. There are a couple tickers that I'm trading that are like this. And we also talked about how price was actually starting to get past the daily 50. So that all worked out nicely. Earnings worked out for them. A nice big move up like that, and we'll have to see how far that goes, but eventually I'm sure there's a pullback that we can work about getting into. So good news on that one as far as Tesla goes. But then here's an interesting thing. How about some of the other electric car players, especially over in China? We got Neo. Didn't really respond, did it? And in fact, what I've been looking at was usually a short play, because you could see there was a gap here between price and the daily 50, and you can see that price did work its way back down to almost the daily 50. It could keep going lower. I don't actually see a bullish setup yet. The Moxie indicator here on the hourly chart is still very far below zero, meaning it's got a lot of work to do before it can go positive, and I don't see any positive divergence yet either. It's just still kind of trending down. And you can see price is just following the hourly 50 in a downward motion, so this could still definitely go lower. And so despite Tesla having a good time, it did not necessarily move the rest of the field. I think, Rivian and Lucid, they're kind of trying to work up a little bit too, but same thing, haven't really responded too much. So I think China is kind of off in its own territory right now. And if you look at XPEV and other Chinese name, you can see that it looks pretty much exactly like Neo, and you can see here how it got all the way back down to the daily 50, which is what I was calling for, and that worked out perfectly. I made a post on Twitter showing the inverse trampoline move. Price should not be over the 50 if the Moxie indicator is below zero, and I got some questions on that. People were like, yeah, so what are you talking about? And I said, okay, not everybody knows my Moxie rules or the way that I talk about this stuff, and so I just wanted to show people that this is how the Moxie indicator shows you things. This was either a short trade or it was a false long. Like, don't get suckered into this as a long move, because it's not ready. The Moxie indicator is telling you don't go long, and that worked out very, very nicely. So yeah, China seems to be kind of off doing their own thing, still very weak. They are still locked down with COVID, and I'm hearing some other financial issues that are going on over there. So just kind of, if you're looking at the Chinese market, just pay attention maybe a little bit more what's going on with the news out there, and be careful. And then we could also see LI, another one of those electric manufacturers, and it did have a little pop this morning, but then and got sold into and didn't do much. I was looking for price to also come back down to the daily 50, and you could also see that there was an inverse trampoline move right there on the hourly chart. So more things that are showing kind of topping or weakness or pullback on the Chinese market through these names, and the Tesla electric car news did not have any effect on most of these. And then kind of with that, some other things that I'm looking at, speaking of Chinese or China, let's look at KWEB. And you can see, I want to show you this pattern, and this is how the Moxie indicator works. Number one, you can see here how price is either double top or went slightly higher, but notice that the Moxie indicator was down. That's your negative divergence. The Moxie indicator is trying to communicate to you, and what it's saying is, hey, yes, price went all the way back up here, but notice that the Moxie indicator was kind of hovering down here. In fact, when price was starting to try and move up, the Moxie indicator was still moving down. and so you go higher, and now you're back at your previous high, but you're only that far above zero. That's not good. That's a whole lot less energy that took you all the way up to the same place. So there's your negative divergence. And what you can see is that is what helped bring, right here, price back down to the daily 50. Very similar to PDD, JD, Neo, XPEV, all these names that I had been looking at shorting and communicating to the traders about shorting, and that's what's happening there. So let's take that. There's more I could talk about, but I really just wanted to show you that portion of KWEB, because if you understand that pattern and how the Moxie indicator works with that, then we might be looking at something, say, XBI, and we could be seeing the same pattern showing up again. Look at this. And so this is kind of, I look at something like this and I say, well, this looks like it's starting to want to pull back. And this was one of the leaders. The biotech space was actually one of the leaders as the market started to bottom and move up. And if this sector looks like it's ready to kind of slow down to the upside and maybe even pull back, then that might also communicate some stuff about the broader index and how I'm saying, well, the whole index is a little bit overbought and we should actually be prepared for a pullback. And so I think that's what we're seeing. There is a pretty big gap between price and the daily 50. That's great until it isn't. And I think at some point that's going to be an issue, and we should expect at some point price to come back down to the daily 50. Well, when is that, and how do we start seeing this? Well, what you do is you look at the next lower time frame, and here you see price up. Notice that the Moxie indicator level, negative divergence, right? Like price went higher, but the Moxie indicator did not go higher. So that's something to pay attention to. And then you could see a double top. And look at the negative divergence on the Moxie indicator. Very, very similar to that example that I showed you on KWEB, to where here is price all the way up here, and look at the Moxie indicator down here. It's like almost out of gas. And I put that together with this gap between price and the daily 50, and I start seeing that at some point, fairly soon, we should be expecting XBI, the biotech ETF sector, to start moving down. And I think it's going to probably coincide with the rest of the market starting to move down and pull back. Now, again, I don't think that this is a bad thing. I think this is actually going to be good and healthy, and I think that this pullback should be into support, and that's what I'm going to be looking at when we get there. One more example, if we look at Roblox, kind of looking similar, right? These patterns are all looking similar, and you could see Roblox. Look at this big old gap between price and the daily 50. And how about on the hourly chart? Price up, Moxie indicator level slightly down. That's your negative divergence. Then you can see we have a double top, and again, negative divergence. Now, Roblox, KWEB, XBI, they are all very, very different from each other, aren't they? They don't overlap at all. But look at these patterns that are starting to set up. Look at how Moxie is communicating to us, and this is starting to build a narrative that I'm like, yeah, we've had a few days, couple weeks of pretty decent moves, things starting to hammer out a bottom and move up. But now it seems to me that we should be expecting some sort of pullback, and that is the case that I'm building through here. And then I want to see about going shopping on the long side when we actually start getting that pullback. Now there are some other names. How about Upwork? Now, keep in mind, some of these names have earnings coming up, and it's up to you if you want to take the risk of trading something through earnings. But in a good sense of what I'm trying to look for, here is Upwork and how it came down and tested the daily 50 twice. So we could actually be looking at a double bottom off of a daily 50, which should be pretty darn good. And so Upwork, amazingly, could actually end up being a good buy, and it could actually, I don't know, maybe it even goes up to the daily 200. I mean, that's a fairly healthy move. Now, do I want to buy it right now? Well, maybe not. I think that there could be an opportunity to see another little pullback in through here, and then we can go. Because you can see here, price is over the 50, but the Moxie indicator is below 0. That's telling me I should wait just a little bit. You know, we won't. That's not quite official. That's not quite set up. So I think that there could be another little sideways to down that we could then take advantage of with Upwork. Then just a couple other examples, BLDP, and you can see, yes, they've been messy. They have been very choppy. They've been hammering out a bottom in through here. You can see this, and they can kind of see the lower highs. They are working, and it is trying to get past its daily 50. So just look at a bunch of these other stocks and charts and say, okay, how are they doing this? And again, with the whole channel situation, there's your channel, and you can even see here, there's a channel, and here we are at the upper range. So yes, it could break out, but also maybe it would be a little bit more advantageous to just see if this thing can kind of pull back here. You can find an entry, and then it'll go up, and maybe it'll break out there. So that's, again, trying to put this narrative of what I'm thinking and how I'm seeing stuff, that I think that there's an opportunity for a pullback to get in on some of these names, and that maybe right this moment is not the best time to be getting all in on them. Bill, you could see that it's got kind of this channel situation, if I could kind of draw that well, and you can see here we are at the upper range. And if you even didn't want to do that, you could be looking at this and say, how about this? You could even go left and say, well, let me see, if I could draw just straight, there you go, a little bit better there. You can see that there's a bit of a gap. Well, oftentimes when price is able to even get into that gap, it will cross that gap. It doesn't really stop in the middle of it. But it has to first be able to get past it. And so far it hasn't really been able to get past it. And I'm not sure if it's going to be able to do it on this go around. So again, I would be interested to see if there's a little bit of a pullback, and then maybe it can go there and cover that gap. Very interesting stuff in through here. Kind of a new, different way that we need to look at this, since we are coming out of downtrends. They are different than being able to buy continuations of stocks that are already in uptrends. And then Neo, the other Neo, this is not the Chinese electric car, and we could see we're noticing progress. And again, a lot of these are kind of in different formations in different ways, but you can see here, price was trying to get past the daily 50, and then it basically got on the 50 and followed it, and now we're popping up again. It's not the prettiest thing, but it is starting to work. That was a pretty good day in through there, and you can see it's really just been trying to hammer out that bottom and get over that daily 50. The hourly 200 has gone from a downtrend to flat, and usually the next thing is to go up from there. So yeah, we're starting to see some stuff out there, and I think that there are opportunities on the long side. So if you guys are interested, you like how I see this and whatnot, just make sure you head over to profitpilot.com and then click on services, and that's where you guys can find either the classes that I have, or how the indicator, or the trading room that I do. So looking forward to seeing you guys out there, and if there's any just way that I can help out, this is what we're here for. So thanks again. You guys take care, and I'll see you at the next one.
Hey guys, Dave Keller here with StockCharts.com. Thanks so much for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, and we hope you did, hit the like button right below. Also, we have so much new content every day. Consider subscribing to the channel. Just hit the subscribe button in the video or right below. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Have a fantastic day.